It's a little bit different. You know, the DTSC Safer Consumer Products Program is a cradle to grave, actually cradle to cradle approach to consumer product manufacture and distribution. So the idea is that you want to safeguard human health and the environment by planning your product in advance, by making sure that chemicals of concern that are not necessary to be in your product are not in your product. Cannabis regulation is a little different. I mean, the parallel is safeguarding human health and protecting the environment, but the approach is a little different. It's not a cradle to grave. I don't think we're seeing issues about disposal of cannabis products per se in the cannabis regulation. So that's a pretty significant difference. I think the most important thing to think about is that as important as it is to comply with cannabis regulations, you need to start thinking about mainstream regular business issues. I'm an attorney, and I got an email a couple of weeks ago from a continuing legal education course, um, how to effectively sue the cannabis and marijuana industry. And so uh, just like regular businesses, this industry is going to end up being targets for what I call, regular lawsuits, and folks need to be mindful of that. Misleading advertising claims, all sorts of things that are pitfalls for other businesses. Cannabis is going to encounter that as well. So Proposition 65 is a California right to know law. It requires businesses to provide clear and reasonable warnings prior to exposing individuals to chemicals on the Prop 65 list. If you've ever been at the airport, coming out of the jetway, out of the plane, the first sign you'll see is a Prop 65 sign. And so this law applies to any kinds of exposures, including exposures from consumer products. Again, cannabis is becoming a mainstream industry. Is going to have to think about Proposition 65 compliance. This industry has already been hit. Hundreds of dispensaries have been hit for failing to provide warnings for marijuana smoke because marijuana smoke is identified as a carcinogen on the Prop 65 list. So as important as it is to keep this to the straight and narrow path on cannabis regulations, folks have to open up their minds and think about their other potential liability. So I recently wrapped up a Proposition 65 settlement on marijuana smoke with a Sonoma County DA. And so that settlement establishes a model for Proposition 65 compliance that's a little bit different than what prior Prop 65 settlements have done. And it allows Prop 65 warnings to be provided on exit packaging instead of signs plastered all over the place. So I think that could become a model for how to comply that cannabis businesses need to be mindful of and think about, to again, the whole goal here is to not get sued for failure to comply.